Welcome everyone to JCTV Spotlight on the Arts, a special feature of Mid-Missouri Art News. Today is November 15th, 2017, in the capital city of Jefferson City, Missouri. And I'm featuring a special guest today, Bryan Haynes, an artist out of Washington, Missouri. I'm your host, Rick Jey. Well, Mr. Haynes, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your interest in my work.
Yes, it speaks for itself, so I'm very excited to have you with us today. We'll turn the spotlight on you and find out a little bit more about Mr. Bryan Haynes. Well, in fact, can you tell us a little bit about you and those highlights of your life that maybe best describe Bryan Haynes?
Well, I remember at an early age creating art. I mean, like we all did as kids, scissors, paint, but really growing up with a father who painted as well, and my brother. The three of us would go out, whether it be Ireland or the countryside of Missouri, just creating artwork from the very beginning. My earliest memories were creating artwork.
Excellent. So you definitely had a backbone already, a foundation somewhat being groomed into the art world. And you spoke of Ireland now, so you have some memories of Ireland?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, when you're young, the memories are so strong, aren't they? And
yes.
Sometimes they cross over from senses, from taste to visual.
Yes.
So I remember the greens being so intense in Ireland that they almost have a flavor.
I see.
If you understand.
You can almost taste them, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and things like that. But then going to school in New Mexico and getting that landscape in my senses, as every artist who's ever been to New Mexico, it just becomes part of you, right?
Santa Fe.
Yeah, and Taos.
And Taos.
Learning about the founders of the Taos school there. And then going on to school in Southern California at the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. And that really laid a good foundation for design.
Excellent, excellent. So your birthplace?
Kirkwood, Missouri.
Kirkwood, Missouri.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I know Kirkwood well. And family?
Family's still there. Parents, very supportive, as I said, always, supported me from the very beginning and never said, get a real job. You can, so they were very supportive.
Well, your personal values, I believe it shows in your work. You've written these books, children's books, and your landscaping speaks well of Thomas Hart Benton. So I believe a person has to have some value to themselves before they can really apply it to the brush, whether it be negative, positive or negative, what have you. It still is put on the canvas or paper and expressed. And so you have an extensive level of education, it sounds like.
Yeah. Many people consider Art Center in Pasadena to be the preeminent design school in the world. So while going to school there, you're designing next to filmmakers and car designers and environmental designers, and so it really gives you a foundation for how to construct an image. In my case, an image. And painters, we all make images, right? So it just shows you how to build a structure that'll have a solid foundation for what you're trying to express.
Yes, your work speaks of everything that a person desires to become his best in art, and our viewers definitely will see that as different clips of his work will appear as we talk. Would you like to say a family hello to anyone at this time?
Oh, sure. Mother and father, Richard and Diana, and my brother Michael, and sisters, Josephine and Melissa. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Yeah, right. We're all healthy and still alive.
Excellent, yes. Well, can you share with us, you covered it lightly, but more in depth, can you share with us when and how you were first inspired to become an artist, and really what continues to inspire you at this time in the world of art?
Yeah, isn't it storytelling? I mean, as a representational artist, it just comes down to storytelling, whether it's literally telling how wild honey used to be gathered, for instance, or just as something as simple as how a sycamore tree can express a feeling. Yes. That's telling a story, but it's a very basic thing. So again, back to constructing the foundation of that composition, you first have in your mind, what do I want to express? And every drawing, every line, every color, every edge should help express that thought.
And we're going to cover that in this second segment, where we're going to get in depth with you how it comes to you, how it's applied, how long it takes you, and what you look for in the brush strokes, what have you. So we'll save a little bit of that here after the break in a few minutes. Well, you know, Bryan, I first admired your works at the Runge Conservation and Nature Center last summer.
Yeah.
Can you share with us your favorite mediums and subject matter when working on a project?
Sure, yeah, it's been the same all along. I've been a professional artist for 34 years, starting out freelance as an illustrator in Los Angeles, doing work for Warner Brothers, Universal Studios, Disney, and it was all acrylic all the way through. As an illustrator, you've got to have something that dries fast. You can ship it to New York. So it was illustration board is what the surface was at the time, back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s.
Illustration board, yes.
Yeah, but as my career kind of went into more fine art direction, I went back to canvas, back to the basics, but it's still acrylic, same palette I've been using for 34 years.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you know, I have partnered with the Runge Conservation Nature Center in Jefferson City, Missouri, for an exhibit for all the guests that have been in the last year here as viewers make it a popular program, and then those that are scheduled for the future in 2018 that were booked all the way up until December. So I want to thank the viewers again for that. But I have partnered, been Missouri Art News and Spotlight on the Arts, and we are looking forward to you as being a part of that exhibit, among others. So it's very exciting to know that you're going to be a part of that. Do you have anything on your mind that you would like to share at this moment before we go to break?
I've gotten this brand new gallery and studio where it's a studio in the back and a gallery in the front, beautiful street front presence, and I'm just so excited about creating artwork there that I can instantly show and exhibit right away. So I feel really lucky to have that.
And you have a grand opening
coming up Sunday, the 19th.
The 19th of November, inviting everyone to be a part of that. I'm got it on my calendar, so maybe I'll meet a few of you there also when I go to spend some time at the gallery with Bryan and company. That sounds really like a lot of fun also. Well, Mr. Bryan, we must take a break, so hang with me. And after the break, we learn more about Mr. Bryan Haynes of Washington, Missouri now, and learn more about how he arrives at the project theme, how he brings it together, and any techniques that he would like to share with us that are not confidential, shall we say. So stay with us. We'll be right back. welcome back to Spotlight on the Arts here at JCTV in Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm your host, Rick Jey, and I continue with our special guest, Mr. Bryan Haynes of Washington, Missouri. It's all here on Spotlight on the Arts, a special feature of Mid-Missouri Art News, JCTV. Well, Bryan, you have shared so much information before the break. Now I would like to ask you to try and answer a few questions that our viewers have asked me to approach you about. The first is, how do you arrive at a project idea? What seems to inspire you into that quest?
Great, thanks for asking, Rick. As an illustrator, I'm given a lot of projects and have been for the first 25 years of my career. So I was doing advertising or editorials for magazines, but after some period of time, I wanted to do paintings for myself. So I'm a reader. I read a lot of stories, a lot of books. And so sometimes I love Missouri history and the early periods of this the area we live in, especially the Native Americans who were here before us. And so I read a lot about that, or journal entries by early settlers. And so having just read that, I may be driving down the road or hiking in the woods, and this story they'll see the crest of a hill or the bend of a tree, and suddenly they will relate and come together, and I'll realize that's how I can tell that story. And so rush home, and as many of us have, you're an artist yourself, a little sketchbook. I'll just do these little sketchbook, maybe 2 by 3 inches. And if the composition starts to work, I mentioned earlier the design school I went to.
Yes.
Very important to design the structure first. Without a good base, you can't really lay a foundation of a house, right? Exactly. So if it's working in that tiny little thing, I'll do another drawing that's slightly larger, still black and white, still in pencil.
Yes.
Get larger and larger. This sounds laborious, but I do an embarrassing amount of sketches before I even get to a color version. And then I'll do a color rendering that has to please me, and it's kind of a roadmap of how the color is going to work, because usually my paintings are fairly large and complicated, and they have human figures in them, running or cradling wheat or pushing a plow. So it's all got to work together. So it's very complicated, and if you got to make a map for yourself of something that complicated. So it's many stages, and I finally get to the end. Now this is my own personal work, but I have many commissions by people who've asked me to paint their farm or paint their family or something that they've dreamed up. But that's built the same way, because I'm just an old illustrator and always will be.
So that's the foundation, as an older, experienced illustrator.
Yeah.
I guess I do basically the same thing, because once it's in my head, then I have to apply it in sketches, and maybe 2 or 3 sketches or a portion thereof. I try to identify the painting that I have in mind, and I take an area and develop that area first on paper, and then I try to bring them together, almost like a puzzle, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Bring it out of your mind and then try to perfect it on the canvas as far as drawing. Some of the sketches on the canvas end up looking like doodles, but the final work, that's what we strive for. Show a little bit of expertise and finally bring out what you're happy with, I guess, or what I'm happy with.
Right.
See. Well, so I would ask you, can you step us through the steps that you use once you have that idea in the psyche, let's say from the conception to the final brush strokes. And if you want to, artists love to hear about brush strokes, so stroke the viewers a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm so lucky to be on a format where people know what I'm talking about, because I'll take my drawings that finally get something I'm pleased with, and I'll just call it a template. And I'll enlarge that into my computer and outprint it on just copy paper, because I'll have my drawing now. It could be fairly good size. Flip it over and just lay a chalk wash on the back, flip that over, and on my canvas just trace. And this is how Michelangelo, Rembrandt, this is old school.
Yes.
This is nothing new about this at all. They called it a cartoon at that time. Right. But I'll just trace that on my canvas, and that's where it'll start. And I'll have, as I spoke before, kind of a roadmap, color study as a guide. And I may have reference of a model that I photographed, someone running or someone pushing a plow, as I say. I'm usually my own model because I'm the cheapest and most available. So, yeah, and so it's really old school. It's anachronistic in how things used to be done.
Yes.
And as illustrators, we had to crank out things in days. You know, Johnson & Johnson calls with a project, and you have to have a sketch overnight. At the time, it was faxed. Now we could send it by email. And if that's okay, then you start on the painting, and you better have it done in 4 or 5 days, ready to ship. So that was an intense training for 25 years in order to have the luxury of weeks to do a painting of my own.
Oh, wow, that sounds really interesting and awesome experience in itself, although it was surely a lot of pressure on you to complete those things. And I sort of remember those days that without the computer generated images. I had a nephew that studied with Walt Disney in Florida, I think it was, as an illustrator, but more or less developed through the digital imaging now.
Yeah.
So he's quite experienced in that field. So we've taken it from paper to electronics, I guess, or computerized.
One of my favorite instructors at Art Center in California was Bernie Hogarth. Do you remember those drawing books that he used to create?
Yes,
He was the original artist who did Tarzan, the ones with the cheetah that had the perfect anatomy, or the saber-toothed tiger, or they were incredible. Well, he was pretty old at that time, but enthusiastic, and he would just keep us enraptured. The students would watch him they had not chalkboards, but whiteboards at the time, and he would start a skeleton of a mastodon and then lay muscles on it and then finish it with the skin. So building anatomy, both human or animal, that way, it really gave you a great foundation for it.
Now I have a personal question. When I do an animal, a dog, especially, or horses, I love to do horses also, and I like to start with the basic shape, but then I layer from bone structure, drawing it all out, getting it ready, and then I layer basically the muscle content, and then I do like layering for effect in my paintings, that you maybe can see. So when I get finished, there are bone underneath, there are muscles, and then you have the skin and hair. So I have found this from a basis of, I guess, my own concept is that it seems to really pay off.
It does.
To give it more of a realism effect
really
that I like to go for.
Right.
So that is interesting. I noticed too that with any artist I speak to, we all seem to have the basic ideas, the basic foundations that come to us almost genetically, or what we see, but a little help from someone like Bryan to give us a little more of an idea of where to begin and add to. That helps a lot, so I want to thank you for sharing that with our viewers and myself. Well, how long does it take you to complete most projects, would you say?
Yeah, well, it ranges, of course. I was mentioning the quick illustrations that have to be done right away. Probably the largest painting I've done was for the Kaufman Foundation in Kansas City for their headquarters. It was a mural 80 feet long and 6 feet tall. So that took about 1.5 years from meeting with the client and going over their concepts and drawing and sending drawings and getting them approved, and then doing the final enormous painting. So that would be the longest and the biggest. A typical might take a couple of weeks to do a large landscape or something.
So it's not a hurried up Bob Ross effect,
no,
for sure.
No.
I mean, I like some of his techniques. They do speed things up for you.
Yeah.
But then I like to put that finishing touch on where it does look like a leaf or what have you. So
sure.
Again, it shows in your work. And we'll, as we're speaking, the viewers will be able to see some of those. And we want to present your books here just for a quick look here in a few moments. Well, everyone has their favorite pieces of work that they call their favorites. Even sometimes we're surprised by our own works when it's completed. So can you identify and share with us some of your favorites and why they have become a favorite, maybe with your viewers?
Yeah, I have many, and often, as you're an artist, so you know the latest one you've been working on is your favorite, right?
Yes.
And then there's something that I've never had a paint. Maybe you're different, Rick. I've never had a piece that I'm completely satisfied with.
Right.
Never. And maybe that's what drives you on to the next one. Maybe that's what makes you stop and say, okay, I've had enough. I have to set this aside and get on to the next. And maybe that's a good thing, because when do you stop? That's another thing. When is something finished? I'm not really answering your question. There are some ones that I had a great journey with. Yes. The patron who commissioned the piece. There was a gentleman I'm friends with now who's a collector of historical objects, and he brought a 1750 Osage tribe gunstock war club to me, and we can date it because it has a French trade item is the metal point to it, embedded in this gunstock club. The Native Americans at the time, when they first met Europeans, they were impressed by the guns. They didn't know quite how it worked, but that shape of the stock they thought held power, until they then discovered how it worked. But at that time, there was a period of time when they carved their clubs into that gunstock shape. So he brought me one of these and he said, Bryan, create a painting around this. So it was this big 60-inch wide painting of these Osage braves running through the woods, and one of them is carrying that, and the instant, he's looking at you for just an instant as he's running past. And so trying to create emotion, trying to create excitement of what it must have been like to be in the woods and have encountered Native Americans of
yes.
such a dominant tribe as the Osage.
Definitely. And I do recall some of the shapes of those weapons. Now we understand why the stock, being so large, had in their minds so much power.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Well, do you have any projects now in process that our viewers may look for in the future? Naturally, we want to start off with the studio in Washington, Missouri, where you made the move, probably.
Yeah.
Invite them up again. For their second, people just joined us possibly.
Sure. Please come to my gallery in Washington, Missouri. It's 10 West 2nd Street. Still getting the address familiar in my mind. I have many projects going on at once, and that's kind of how I like it. I like layers of different things. But here's a book that I just finished with some friends of mine. They are the authors, Dan and Connie Burkhart, first-time authors, and they did a wonderful job of creating a fictional story about 9 generations of different families growing up along the Missouri River from Hermann, Missouri to the confluence. So there are 9 towns, New Haven, Dutzow, St. Charles, and so forth, each with a story to tell, and it's wonderful. I call it a stealth adult book because I've learned so much from it. I think you would enjoy too.
I think anyone would, yes. That
yeah,
would give
so
us really an introduction and history of the Osage and different tribes along the river, which I've always been interested in. And then you also have a previous book that really speaks well of your
Missouri Life Publishing came to me and asked if I would like my work published in this book from 2013, and
get a better.
So I got just a wonderful opportunity.
Okay, super. Now you are active with presentations of your works. Can you share with our viewers where they any upcoming exhibits or shows planned?
I have work at the Missouri Botanical Garden, the Danforth Plant Science Center has permanent exhibitions, and the Jefferson Memorial National Park, or the Arch Museum down below, has a mural of mine. And at the gallery, I keep mentioning the gallery because I'm so excited to have this exhibit space. So that'll rotate, and that'll be things I'm currently working on.
And I understand you have something at the Kansas City Chiefs Arrowhead Stadium.
The Hunt family commissioned a mural piece about Missouri. So they had many artists do commissions based on geography. So I was awarded the Missouri Commission, and they had all the contiguous states, so Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and so forth, each had an artist that represented that theme throughout the stadium. So that was really fun to do.
I'd like to turn the viewers on to going to a website, www.9net.org, that featured Mr. Bryan, and has a very interesting presentation of his work on the interview done recently, last year I believe it was, for Channel 9 in Springfield. Arts America, which History of America, where they featured different artists, and Bryan was one of those. They compared, once again, Bryan's work to Thomas Hart Benton's. And so I encourage you to take a look at that. Now, Bryan, you said you have another interview coming up that'll be going national. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, the KATC in St. Louis, the 9 Network, is building a documentary about this book, and it should go nationwide. So we're hoping that people will enjoy it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Phil, I want to thank you for contributing to Spotlight on the Arts. It has been a really inspiring visit with you. Would you like to leave us with your website address, telephone number, email address, what have you?
Sure. It's a little bit long, but it's just artbybryanhaynes.com, and please come and visit, and I'd love to show you the gallery.
Well, thank you, Bryan.
Yeah, thank you, Rick.
It's been a great pleasure. In other news, the Jefferson City Art Club invites you to their next monthly meeting, where you can view and listen live to the words and view art pieces from the presenter on hand at the meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for November 20th, 2017. The meeting begins at 5:30 p.m. with a special social and show and tell time frame while we enjoy food and refreshments. The presenter beginning sharply at 6 p.m. and then shortly after that, a business meeting. The JCAC meet every third Monday each month, September through May, and we invite you to come and join us and be a part of the Jefferson City Art Club. Next here on Arts Around the, next here on Spotlight on the Arts, you'll be able to enjoy listening to the Jefferson City Community Symphony Band as they perform their Christmas concert at Capitol Mall. December is on us, the holidays are coming. That program will be taped on December 16th and be ready for airing in time for your holiday listening enjoyment. I hope you do tune in and enjoy that show here at JCTV. My next featured guest on Mid-Missouri Art News are artists Barb Anderson of Jefferson City, Missouri, and Jerry Thompson of Harrisburg, Missouri. That program is scheduled to tape on December 13th, 2017. I want to thank you, JCTV producer Gloria and Lowell and camera crew, and thank you, our viewers, for joining us. Look for more Spotlight on the Arts right here on JCTV, and don't forget YouTube. I'm Rick Jey saying, see you next time.